Hey there, it's Jenny, and I am back to share with you how I plan this week in my memory planner. This is the Happy Planner, Happy Memory Keeping book. It's the same size and same layout as a big Happy Planner. It's undated though, and it has some other features that a typical Happy Planner doesn't have. So, like lines and grids and things like that. And then in the sidebar, you can see there's some other things too. Honestly, I really ignore most of those things. I was looking for a big happy planner where the paper wasn't bleeding and shadowing heavily, and I remembered I had a couple of these in my cupboard, and so I'm using them because they have better paper and the layout that I love. But I don't really care about those other things. If I'm able to make them work, then that's great. Otherwise, I just ignore them. I am cutting up the photos, from this week, and I printed them on my Canon selfie printer. They are made out in this collage with an app called Pick Frame, one word, and it does cost a couple of dollars, and I'm sure there's free alternatives, and I tell you guys this every single week, but you just never know when something's going to resonate with people. So I'm hopeful that at some point some of these things click and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's totally what I want to do. Anyway, it's a couple bucks, but it's really intuitive, and I've been using it for a really, really long time, so I've well gotten my money's worth. This week I had a ton of photos, particularly in the second half of the week, so I'm going to have to find ways to overlap them and make them work. I didn't have as many in the first half of the week, so I'm just adhering them down where they happened. The top, middle, and bottom boxes don't really matter to me. I just sort of see the entire column as a day, and so where I fit the photos in terms of time doesn't really matter to me necessarily. It's just more that I get them in a pleasing way on the page on the day they happen, if possible. But again, I'm not going to beat myself up if that doesn't happen. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm pretty casual about planning and memory keeping because I know that years down the road, these little things are not going to matter at all in terms of like, oh my God, did that picture of my dog really get taken on Tuesday or was it Wednesday? Really, genuinely, it's never going to matter. But I am going to like to see the progressions of the weeks and things like that. So that's just sort of my personal take on it. Everybody has their own, and that is what makes the whole thing so wonderful. So you can see there's tons of overlapping and very little white space on the right hand side because of so many photos. And ordinarily I wouldn't include multiple photos of one baseball game, for example. However, we have had so few, you know that it just feels important to celebrate that these things are happening. So that's why I'm using a lot of photos. Now I'm going to start with the decorative elements. That's the second part that I usually do in my memory planning. I have put down a beautiful striped full box. These are from the Cocoa Daisy Poppy Fields kit. And the second point is going to be like an anchor, something that holds the decorative cluster in place, and then a little accent on top of the anchor. It's not always the same, so it's not always a label sticker that's the anchor, but it's something that really stands out to me as the anchor. So again, here's the background in the upper right hand corner. It's just a beautiful pattern. Then this floral is the anchor, and then a little word strip as the accent. That is almost always how my clusters go, and it's not something that's necessarily like, oh my gosh, that's revolutionary. But when you think of it like that, it works out great for me. So we'll do it again. We'll do a third one of those. Sometimes it's just a little bit harder to come up with that, especially if you're not using full boxes. This week we're using full boxes as the background, and hopefully in the future I will remember to share with you using something else as the background. So here is the full background, and I love that that mimics water, and then I have pool photos. It's awesome. Like, it's such a great tie-in. Here's another label as the anchor, and then we're going to have a floral again as our accent. So they're kind of the same over on the left-hand side of the page. But I really think that that helps think about making a decorative cluster. So a background, an anchor, and an accent. Works for me. And obviously labels are really, really easy anchors. I mean, they're just super simple to work around. Now I have the basic decorative triangle, visual triangle. I'm going to go back and add the spots for the activities and appointments. I have explained this about 1,000 times on this channel, so if you are not new here, you will be like, oh my gosh, Jenny, I'm so sick of hearing this, because I probably would be. But I include these things because when I started memory planning in 2016, yes, I have a memory planner for every year, 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. I wanted to capture, the whole goal was to capture how our lives looked right then. And that included how busy we are and how many things we had going on. And I'm not glorifying busy, but I had 3 school-aged sons at that time. And so, and when I say school-aged, I mean like high school, middle school, elementary school. And so it was very, very important for me to document those days because I know how fast they go. And I am telling you what, they go even faster than you can imagine because now my oldest son is a sophomore in college. Anywho, now I can go back and add the alphabet stickers for a couple of these photos, and I love them. I love it. I love how simple alphabet stickers are in your projects because they are notating an activity. So it says swim. That's what the photos were and what we did that day. But they also add this really cool, like decorative, like stand out element. It's so neat. And I really highly recommend it if you haven't tried it. Now these little word strips, also kind of the same thing. Like they really sort of sum up a feeling or sum up a thought. And they are just tiny little pops. And in this instance, I love them because they're black with the white writing. So they really provide a lot of contrast, which can be hard to create without going and creating it on purpose. All right, so now I'm going to pull these out because I'm going to start writing on the pages, and I don't like to write in the planner if I can help it when it's on the discs just because it's so much harder to do. I'm going to fill in the boxes first, which include the activities and the appointments. Now, a lot of times when I'm memory planning, I lean a little bit more heavily on boxes to notate the activities and the appointments. Now, that's not to say that I don't use the highlighter and writing directly on the paper method, as you can see here, but I lean a little more heavily on the boxes because I add journaling here, and that is me writing directly on the pages. So I don't want to get those two things mixed up, if that makes sense. So if I had a ton of writing the activities directly on the page, it might be a little bit more confused with the journaling. So I keep it to a minimum, adding just a little pop here and there, and then focus a little bit more of my writing directly on the page with my journaling. So you can see we're finished there with writing the activities and all of that. And you can see there's a couple of pops of where I wrote directly on the page, but then now we're going to add the journaling. So this is a magnetic craft mat. I've had this one for about 400 years. Okay, obviously that's an exaggeration, but I love it because it helps keep my ruler in place and I can draw straight lines for my journaling. I am not a perfectionist by nature. It's just, I really genuinely just don't care. I find that when the whole thing comes together, it really doesn't make a difference, but I do can to keep things straight. So that's where those lines come in. So I'm able to make them straight. They look super cute. And then I can vary the length of them because they're straight. And then I love the way that that looks. And you guys know that because I've talked about that a whole bunch of times. But it works out great for me. I also am really still loving this idea of drawing the lines with the mild liners because it adds that pop of color, but then it also still gives me those straight lines. I will 100% with certainty go back to just using a pen to do that because you know I love the contrast. But for now, the mild liners are really providing a super fun pop of color that just is really working for me. I love to include the journaling. It's not always the same. Like sometimes it's about a specific activity, sometimes it's about a feeling, sometimes it's about the overall week. It really changes from week to week, but it's really usually fairly general. I don't get too specific in my journaling because, again, it's not meant to be a journal about my feelings per se. It's really more a look at this week. So now I've just added a couple of more decorative elements, like little pops in the blank sections right there, just so I can add a little bit to those white spaces since we have a few of those. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below, and I will do my very best to get back to you. Thanks so much, and make it a great day.